Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to Cosmic Culture, the channel where we talk about all major movie and television news. Another week has passed and we have received the third episode for Falcon and the Winter Soldier on Disney+, and this video is an ending explained video where we'll talk about other minor details and theories that I've come up with for what this could mean moving on in the future of the series and in the MCU. If you're trying to avoid spoilers for any of the episodes that have come out, be sure to click away real quick and subscribe to the channel. Come back later after you've seen the episode and let me know what you thought. For the rest of you, that was, in my opinion, the best episode that has come out of the three. The first one was a really cool introductory season premiere episode that showed us the action and gave us an idea of what to expect in the scope of this series. And then the second one was setting us up for what was going to happen in the rest of the season. So very cool and exciting to get those MCU feels, get a few flashbacks, references, Easter eggs, all of that stuff. But episode 3 is really where, for me, this season and the series start to kick off. They've broken Zemo out of jail, and Zemo is just flooding us with information about his past, about the past of the MCU, and all sorts of cool information, and he brings us to Madripoor, which is one lawless civilization that has managed to remain and has always remained. And that is also a place that is just full of very cool scenes and ideas and theories on how this is going to move forward, not necessarily only in this season, but for the entirety of the MCU. Now, I do have a lot of thoughts and ideas. A lot of them are kind of crazy, some of them are reaching, and some of them I've completely made up. But if you want to hear those all, I'll be explaining them after I explain the ending of the episode, so stick around for those. But as far as the episode is concerned, Zemo was broken out of jail, and Bucky helped him and didn't tell Sam. Sam wasn't too happy about it, but he's going to have to get over that, because here Zemo is. Zemo's willing to help because he wants to get rid of the super soldiers. He's never been about it, and he goes into a pretty cool monologue about how the characters, the superhero characters, the symbols of these characters are so dangerous because what they represent is hypocrisy, and it isn't what it seems. And it's cool because later on when we see Sharon, she kind of feels the same idea about superheroes. She thinks these icons and everything they stand for is all built on a bunch of lies and hypocrisy. So that's an interesting theme that we are kind of picking up from both Zemo and Sharon. I also want to say these two characters absolutely created all of the awesomeness that was this episode. Zemo is so cool, and the development of his character over the time has just been crazy, and I'm excited to see where they go with this character. I think he'll be playing and taking on a kind of anti-hero role, and I'll explain that in a minute. And then, of course, Sharon, she's just crazy cool now, you know? She's had all of this time, and she also explains how she's been on the run, and she's been a hustler, and she's kind of accepted that lifestyle. So both of these characters just really stepped up, and they made this episode really, really cool. But Zemo explains we have to go to Madripoor in order to get answers, and that's what they do. Now, eventually they run in and become bountied characters and people want them, but they end up hooking up with Sharon, who will then bring them to where the serum has been created. Now, it turns out the power broker who we've been hearing about is also the ruler, the king, the magistry of Madripoor, and he's the one funding all of the experimentation going into the creation of this serum. It also turns out the person in charge of creating the serum got the samples from the CIA, who stole them from the blood samples of somebody. But we can pretty much confirm these come from Isaac, who we saw earlier in episode 1. After he went on to say, they took samples of me, they tested on me, and they were not finished when they poke and prodded. So these blood samples, they were able to isolate the super soldier serum in them, and he was able to change it that it has a subtle effect, and it doesn't create these big, huge, buff, clearly super soldiers. And he says he made 20 vials of them, but they were stolen by the Flag Smashers, and he was creating more, and that's where that all went out. Zemo ended up killing the guy, so that's probably the end of the creation of more super soldier serum. Now, here's what we can tell from the Flag Smashers. They have several vials left over, and we know this because we overhear a conversation where they're talking about how they have the serum and the power broker is going to come crawling to them, begging to have what left over they do have. So that's probably going to play a very epic part and important part moving forward in the series. But they definitely did take some of the serum. I think we've counted 7 super soldiers up to this point, and 1 died in the first episode when the power broker was chasing them down at the very end in the airplane scene. So there are 13 vials left over that we're aware of, and there could have been a couple that were used in other ways that we don't know about yet. But at least possibly 13 left of that we can possibly guess. After Zemo kills the scientist who is making all of the serum, they are in a little bit of trouble. Like I said, they had bounties on them, so all of these bounty hunters from Madripoor are coming to this location trying to get to Bucky, Sam, and Zemo for the bounty, and Sharon is there with them helping clear them out, get them out of the situation, and they finally clear off. When they leave, Sam tells Sharon to come with him, that he can get her the pardon, and it'll all be fine, let's go back to America. And she says, give me the pardon, and we'll talk later. And then she goes off in a different direction, gets in a car with somebody else, and says, we have a problem. Now, that's the end of Sharon in this episode, but I can almost confirm 100% of my own tuition, this is not the end of Sharon in the series, and she has a major part to play moving forward. There's a lot more to her than meets the eye, and I have a few theories about the character. For starters, my first biggest theory that is just continuously nagging at me is she may be the power broker. And I know they reference him as a he, but there is a specific moment when they're at the bar at Madripoor when they say, hey Zemo, you know who the power broker is, and he says only by reputation. Zemo doesn't know who it is, and I don't think anybody does, because the power broker is an idea that Sharon is shrouded behind and is using to build herself up in this different hustle life that she's living. Now, there are a few reasons why I think the power broker might be Sharon and what Sharon wants to be the power broker for. She's using her power to get super soldier serum so that she can give it to Thunderbolt Ross so that he can give her a pardon and she can return to her normal life. She is very clearly still upset that she isn't able to go to the United States. She mentions she doesn't talk to her family, she doesn't talk to anybody, she has no communication or connection to anyone. So she clearly does miss some of that, even though she has gained a lot of power and a lot of wealth in her life as a hustler in Madripoor, but all of that might just be a way for her to get her pardon from Thunderbolt Ross so that she can make her way back to the United States and back to a normal life. And it would make sense that Thunderbolt Ross would want the serum because that's what he's been wanting since the very beginning, way back during the Hulk, and continuing throughout all of the MCU installments we've gotten. So there's a very clear connection between the power broker, Sharon, and the serum that she, as the power broker, would be trying to get so that she can get a pardon and return home through Thunderbolt Ross. Now, again, that's a huge shot in the dark and just a theory that I was kind of having nagging at me in the back of the head, so I'm going to move on with that. We leave Sharon and we're back on the private jet, and they're talking a little bit about the shield. Falcon wants to destroy it, Bucky wants to steal it before Falcon can, and they have this whole off and on conversation about it. Bucky thinks the shield needs to live on, and Bucky's gonna take it if nobody else will. They surely do not want US Agent to have it. And speaking about US Agent, he pops up a few times in this episode, and every single time there's one driving motivational factor behind him, and that is his ego. He does not have outstanding morals, he is not a good guy. He has a huge ego and he wants to be even with that of Captain America based off of his success and how much great he's done. Not necessarily based off of his high ground, his principles, and his standard, which is what made Captain America, Steve Rogers, who he was. So that is very obvious throughout this episode. In the few scenes we did see with him, there really weren't many in this episode. We then hear Zemo say they have a spot where they can stay as they continue tracking and trying to figure out what is going on with the Flag Smashers, with the Super Soldier Serum, with the Power Broker, all of this. So they fly out to Lativa, and there has Zemo a home. Now, right before they go into the door, Bucky says he's going to go for a walk. Falcon asks if he's okay. He brushes him off and says, yeah, I'm fine. After they go inside, Bucky bends over and picks up something. It's beeping, and it's a tracker. At first, I have no idea what this is. I think maybe somehow US Agent's tracking Sam and Bucky, or Zemo's leaving these little tracers down for somebody. None of that really made sense. It didn't really work. Then we walk off into an alleyway. Bucky turns around and says, I wondered when you'd show up. And somebody from Wakanda is there, and they say, I want Zemo. And that is how the episode ends. A huge, huge cliffhanger. We have somebody from Wakanda tracking down Zemo now that he's escaped. Now, obviously, he killed King T'Chaka, and he tried to blame the Winter Soldier on it, and that's really how we fell into Civil War. But overall, that was the ending of the episode, and that's pretty crazy. And we are left off with a huge cliffhanger and a lot of separate thoughts, like I was mentioning about Sharon, about who the power broker is, what his relationship relationship is with whoever we know in the MCU, whether it's somebody we know, somebody we don't know, if it's going to be a new character, if it's going to be a major character. These are all questions running through our mind right now. Now, as far as Madripoor is concerned, this is a lawless jungle, and I do believe there are going to be enhanced individuals and maybe even mutants living there, but none of that was referenced in this episode. If we return to Madripoor or not is unclear, but Sharon Carter has a lot of knowledge, a lot of information about living in this outlaw world. So if she does get her pardon and makes her way back to the United States and somehow ends up working with the government again, she has a lot of knowledge and information about potential mutants and other types of individuals living out in this lawless land. And that could be how we get the first reference to these characters. Now, like I said, I didn't notice necessarily anything that was outstanding and an obvious Easter egg. There are subtle things that we could be like, hey, look, this is an X, so X-Men. But I don't think they had any specific Easter eggs, at least not that I've noticed up to this point. Maybe some other eagle-eyed fan will be able to pull it out and we can dissect it later, but I don't want to try to hype up mutants if that's not going to be the case for this series. I want to enjoy the series for what it is. But let me know what you guys thought about the episode. For me, this was the best episode, and it's going to be pretty hard to beat moving forward. I'm very curious to see what episode 4 has in store for us, and when all these darts start connecting with the Flag Smashers, the Power Broker, the US government, it's all going to start falling apart, and I am very excited to see how it does. As always, let me know what you thought in the comment section down below. Did you enjoy this episode more? And what are you expecting to see moving forward? Also, what are some of your theories and little notices that you had while watching the episode? I love chatting with all you guys. It's one of the best part of doing this job of being a YouTuber. So let me know your thoughts. As always, thank you to everybody who watched to the very end of the video. If you found it helpful, useful, or entertaining, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. And we'll catch you right here in the next episode of Cosmic Culture.